Welcome to the Grocery Outlet Bargain Market pregame show. I'm Keith Thomas, Furtado, Truckee Media, along with head coach Josh Ivens. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks, Keith.
What a great, hard-fought win against Fernley last Friday night. 17-7, close game throughout. We lose a couple of key players in the first quarter, but next man up, and people stepped up and got the job done.
Yeah, I mean, key players, two of the best players in the state. And that equalized things, pretty quickly. So,
Yeah.
I'm proud of the players, the guys that stepped up, because, really, when you have injuries like that, those guys take a lot of reps. And with Joe, our whole offense is, fairly centered around him. So, there's a lot of different parts we had to adjust pretty quickly there, especially because that was the, I think, third play on our script. So
Well, and a lot of people don't understand, and I talk about this all the time. You look at a final score, it's like the Elko Fernley score the week before, 61-34. But if you don't actually watch the game, you don't know what transpired during the game. So a 17-7 score doesn't really tell the story. But Truckee really stepped up and got the victory.
we had to overcome a lot. I mean, we lost two of our best players, essentially playing without them the whole game. So you could say they missed the whole game.
Yeah, they both went out in the first quarter.
We had 11 penalties for 135 yards. Fernley had 4 penalties for 35 yards. But ultimately, the last penalty called was the difference maker. They're holding all night. They called a few of them, and luckily, they called the one down there at the end of the game, because that was a game changer. It was probably the most impactful play of that game.
Well, I remember Coach Schaefer. I mean, I met him in 2004 when I started getting involved with the football program, and such an incredibly great person. And he always said, don't leave the game in the hands of the officials. And
sometimes it's out of your hands.
Sometimes it is out of your hands.
It wasn't like we're
you
trying.
You have to overcome it.
Yeah, and, we certainly have a lot of cleaning up to do on our part. We got to be a more disciplined football team. We aren't playing as smart as we need to when it comes to 15-yard penalties. There's no excuse for it. All we can do is continue to bring it up and try to get the players to, and everybody to buy into, it's okay to be aggressive. And I can handle aggressive 15-yard penalties, but the stupid, unsportsmanlike stuff has got to stop. That hurt us Friday. It's going to hurt us going forward if we can't fix it.
Well, and sometimes a game like this is a wake-up call for the team to realize that at any point, you could face, a loss.
Yeah. We know that. So, I don't know if it'll be a wake-up call for our guys. I hope so. For Fernley, you couldn't have drawn up a better script. And quite frankly, Early was pretty close to the 2012 deal, right? We were, I think, 5-0 going into that game, on that win streak. Colin Christian and Homer go down in the first quarter, and now we're playing with two of our best players, without two of our best players, in a close, tight game. And I don't know if you read it, but I read the Fernley's newspaper this morning.
I did read it. I was going to bring it up. I'm glad you brought it up, because Anthony Sloan was a wide receiver on that team in 2012, and now he's the coach of the Vaqueros. So, and it was interesting that they were able to pull it out back in 2012, and it was interesting for me because that was my first losing broadcast as a broadcaster, starting with Truckee in 2010, 2012. We're in the middle of the streak, and the coach now of the Vaqueros was on that team in 2012.
Right, and so the script is written, right? You got two of Truckee's players down. You're out in Fernley would be the only difference, right? Which is even more of a disadvantage for us. It's late. It's the fourth quarter, and he's rehashing. Wow, we've with his head coach, his old head coach is his assistant now. So,
right.
Just talking about being there in that place before. But it's just nice to be able to reverse history and have it flip around where our defense stopped them this time, and then our offense goes out there and puts a good 6+ minute drive together to finish off the game. So very proud of how our kids responded. That you're going to go through adversity in a season. We've been through it a couple weeks in a row now, where our guys have stepped up and got us the lead in key times. This time, maybe just a little bit later in the game. But we got a lot of fight in us. We're going to compete. We're going to bring it. And so we know that Fernley is always going to bring it too. I told you guys last week, I don't look at outcomes. I look at who's in front of us, how we got to prepare. Fernley matches up with us pretty well.
Right.
Our defense played great. And, we came away with the W, and that's all that matters.
So tonight's game, we're in Fallon, and they're not quite the Fallon that we're used to seeing. They're 2-3 on the season, but Fallon is always tough, and they're always going to give Truckee a tough game.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're not. Again, if you look at scores and you're looking at stuff as a broadcaster or whatever, then maybe it looks like that. But I watched a lot of film. They're big up front. They got a lot of guys from last year's team that are back up front, and they're a little bit young in the skill positions, but their quarterback can throw. They got number 18 wide receiver. He's fast. He's explosive. He's pretty good.
Quarterback is number 5, Matthew Bird.
Yeah. And he's fast. He's got speed. The only one he didn't outrun against Damani Ranch was number 18, and that's one of the fastest kids in the state. So he's got speed. Number 2 is a hard-nosed runner. Looks like
Carson Melendi, number 2.
Any Fallon kid I've ever coached against, he looks just like that kid. So I actually would reverse that and say this is very much like a typical Fallon team. Maybe schemes are slightly different and things like that. But this team's very capable. They got athletes, big up front, and we've got to go to their house, and they're going to be very motivated to play Truckee like every team. So we're taking them serious as I've ever taken Fallon.
Well, and they have a new field. They put in turf, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
So that should be a good thing for Truckee, having played on turf last week against Fernley, to get that speed thing going and realize how that works.
Yeah, I mean, this will be our 3rd game on turf. Gosh, I can't remember if we even played on turf heading into the state championship game against Slam in 22. But I thought maybe no, that we didn't. So I think it's the other way around. Like, if you're always playing on turf and you got to come to Surprise Stadium, that's a disadvantage. For us to be practicing, especially last week against the option on grass, and then having to go out there, it was a little faster, but we got a pretty fast team. So once you get us on turf, we're going to make those adjustments pretty fast. And I don't think that not playing on turf as much as Fallon will hurt us, but we'll have to play the game and find out.
Speaking of Slam, and I just want to bring up the importance of special teams, because it looked like Moapa Valley lost the game against Slam last week on special teams. They had a snap over the punter's head in the back of the end zone and end up with a safety. Slam ended up winning that game against Moapa Valley 16-14. It was tied 14-14 with 4:37 to go in the game. And as Ray Brewer from the Las Vegas Sun was saying, that was a key game because the winner of that game is in the driver's seat for home field in the playoffs, which is a long ways away. I know we're only talking 1 week at a time here, but special teams for Truckee this year has been really good. Michael Tanner has been outstanding.
Yeah, and it's not just Michael. Our mechanics, snap to hold to kick, are around anywhere from 1.2 to 1.33 on a given snap, and
And that's Sage Ruiz on the holder.
right. And you want to be in the 1.2s in college, so we're really close to college mechanics as far as a snap hold kick. And
Because
it's hard
Truckee's
to
already
block.
blocked a couple of a field goal and a punt.
Yeah, I mean,
this
it's
year.
more than just teeing it up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or just watching a kicker kick. There's other things that go into that, and then protection too. But as long as you have those things pretty dialed in, it's hard to block a kick, especially off the edge, if your mechanics are solid. So there's that. And then Jackson Wicks is our punt snapper, and Louder, he's not, Ray Guy from the Raiders back in the day, but he's pretty consistent. He knows he punts away from the returners, and so all in all, I think we've done a pretty good job with special teams. I mean, it's something that we've emphasized this year, and so we've worked on it quite a bit since spring ball, and it's paying off.
We talked about that you normally don't talk about special teams until August, but you started working on it in spring ball this year.
Yeah, and it could be as much as we're able to kind of specialize things, no pun intended, as well, because you have this Fernley team who, in the past and even this year, they've done a lot of onside kicking and different things kicking off, and that was what we adjusted to and worked on. Instead of our actual return, we feel pretty good because we've worked on it so much. Like we know when they kick it away, how we're going to return. It's the other little things that we might get, an onside, a pooch kick, and we got 2 pooch kicks from there. Which I'm not surprised they don't want to kick away to Esbrook. I wouldn't either. And they gave up a kickoff return the week before. So they're happy to put our offense on the 30 and 35-yard line. And it paid off for them because we didn't really put together a drive either one of those times.
So Friday night, we're in Fallon. Truckee looking for another win, keep this season going undefeated. Very important win for the playoff picture against the Fallon Green Wave. Always a tough matchup. And then we're home for homecoming against the Lowry Buckaroos. And then we take the long trip out to Elko. So for Rory O'Farrell on the camera, I'm Keith Thomas. You've been watching the Tahoe Truckee Media pregame show brought to you by Grocery Outlet Bargain Market. Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome. Thank you. Wolverines.